So my friend decided to choose this design for a birthday, which was the 1st of January, and it was inspired by this picture we saw online. So I created this look and I'll be sharing with you how you can make this as well. So welcome to my channel. This is Hannah Tega. If you're new here, you're very welcome. If you're a subscriber or you continue to visit this channel from time to time, thanks so much for coming again. So stay tuned, guys. So you want to use a pattern paper that will accommodate the length and the width of the dress you want to make. As you can see, mine is 30 in width and 38 in length. So I'm starting off by marking 1 inch at the edge of the paper. That's your start line. So we're creating a start line first, and you want to do that as well. And once you've done that, you want to move on and add your 3 inches neck width. Make your marking, and you want to add your shoulder measurement. So your shoulder measurement divided by 2, whatever it gives you, make the marking. And once you've made the marking, you want to add your neck depth, and the neck depth is 3 inches. You can use any, inches you want, 4 or 5, but I'm going for 3 by 3. We're gonna draft the neckline in a minute. Before then, I want to add the shoulder slope. So the shoulder slopes down to the sleeve, but on this occasion, I'm not making use of the 1 inch. I'm just marking 2 inches at the edge of the paper. So what you need to do, mark your 2 inches at the edge, which is the sleeve area, and connect it from the neckline. Draw a slant line from the neckline all the way to the 2 inches. So if you notice, the 1 inch normal slope is not necessary here. As you can see there's no need for it. So you just draft your line all the way to the sleeve area, sleeve opening. Now we want to add the bust line measurement, starting from the shoulder line right up to the bust line. Take note where the ruler is starting from. Then that's 10.5. So you want to add your bust line measurement. For this is 10.5, so I've marked the 10.5. So you want to rule a line across, then move on to the next stage. I'm marking shoulder to hip line measurement here. I left the waistline because the bust line and the waist were the same, but I'll go back to it in a minute. So this is the shoulder to hip line. Then I wrote the line, then moved on to shoulder to hem line. That is the length of the dress you want to make. From the shoulder, mark the measurement of the dress and roll your line. So after you've rolled the line, you want to take 1.5 inches for your hem allowance. You can take 1 or you can take 1.5. Here I'm marking 1.5. Once you've finished marking, you want to grab your ruler and draw a line across. So here I'm gonna go and add my waistline measurement. So I'll grab my ruler from the start line again to the waistline. After your bust line, add your waistline before the hip. That's the waistline. So I've got all the lines I need for this kaftan. Then now I'm gonna move on to the next stage by adding my horizontal measurement. So the bust circumference is 48 divided by 4. That will give me 12. Make the marking, add 2 inches ease allowance and a 1 inch sewing allowance. I'll move on to the waist. So the waist circumference divided by 4 and mark 2 inches ease allowance and a 1 inch sewing allowance. So here I've got the bust and the waist, if you notice, as the same measurement. So the bust and the waist of this person is the same. I've added the hip circumference as well, and the hip is smaller than the waist and the bust. So I've added extra 2 inches to give the dress a shape. So that means I've added 4 inches in total there for the hip and 1 inch sewing allowance. So what you have on the hip, you had it on the hemline, right? Whatever you have on the hip, you had on the hemline. Now I'm going to move on to the armhole measurements. So armhole circumference divided by 2 is 8. So I want to make sure I've got 8 inches available. For a normal dress, you would measure 8 inches from the shoulder slope. That is what you would do, but this is different. But I want you to take note, I've got 2 inches slope here. So I'm going to work from the slope. So you want to take into account the slope 2 inches we've made already. So from there, you would make the marking of your 8 inches and work all the way to the bust line. Yeah, the bust line there. So the 8 inches has to, work hand in hand with the sleeve opening, right? So I've got 8 inches there available. So I'm going to move on and add extra 2 inches to the kaftan. If you look very well at the kaftan we've got on the picture, it has more of a gathered effect around the waist. So we're going to increase, because this friend of mine wants it a bit, loose. So that's good. So I've added 2 inches on the bust line, 2 inches on the waist, and 2 inches on the hip line. So if you want yours as well to be a bit gathered, more gathered, you want to add extra allowance. So at the end of the day, I've got 4 inches, at the bust line, ease allowance with 1 inch sewing allowance, 4 inches on the waist with 1 inch sewing allowance, then 6 inches ease allowance on the hip line plus 1 inch sewing allowance, just to give a proper shape to the kaftan. So the same measurement I've got on the hip, I went ahead and just wrote a line all the way down. That's it. So now I'll move on to the next stage. Sorry, I missed out on recording the keyhole. And yeah, I've got 2 inches from the waistline. I measured 2 inches away from the waistline. Then at that point, 2 inches point, I took 2 inches above and 2 inches below and made a oval kind of shape. If you want, you can go for 1 inch instead of the 2 inches if it's too wide for you. So I'm going to move on to the next stage, which is drafting the neckline for the droppy side. We've drafted one side of the necklines. Now we're going to be drafting the off shoulder side of the dress. So now the shoulder measurement, if you remember, was 8 inches. So I marked 8 inches. So later I added extra 1 inch allowance to the shoulder and made it 9 inches to give it a kind of droppy effect. But to be honest, that wasn't enough, which I later altered in the video. But here I've drawn out the the neckline, and that's the 9 inches there. I want you to imagine that that's the other side of the pattern paper. So imagine I had a full front drafted. So that's it there. I'm trying to match it up with the one I've drafted here. So I'm going to apply a sellotape. What I'll do is to put it together and apply a sellotape and stick it together so you can understand exactly what I'm doing here. Once the paper has been taped together, I'm just applying 1/2 inch sewing allowance along the shoulder line to the sleeve. So that's the 1/2 inch sewing allowance that I've drafted on that side. And I'm going to apply the same on the other side of the neck. So what I'm doing here, as you can see, that's the neckline formed now. So I folded it over like that, and I'm trying to cut the shoulder slope. It will match the other side of the pattern. So it's got the 1/2 inch sewing allowance included as well on that side. So it's all inclusive now. And when I open this up, this is what I have. And what I'll do now, I'll scribble out the neckline we had before. By the hemline of the kaftan up to the hip point, I made a curved line there. That is optional. It depends if you want your kaftan curvy. Now here is the neckline, the new neckline now. And what I'm gonna do here is to cut a facing for the neckline. You wanna do the same for yours. You need a facing or a bias. It's up to you what you use for your neckline, but I'm cutting a facing here. For stability, you can use any object to hold the pattern paper together. You can apply pins. And here's the facing after cutting the facing out. Then I moved on to folding my fabric. That's the self edge to self edge, which is 60 inches. So basically the width of my fabric is 60 inches and the length is what I have here folded over across. So that's the length of the dress. That's the width and that's the length of the dress. So what you need to do is to fold the fabric over again. Don't forget the pattern paper we cut is 1/4 of your kaftan. That's just 1/4 of your kaftan. So you want to fold your fabric and make sure it's in 4. You fold it twice, then you have 4 pieces like that. And can you see the place on fold as well? You have the place on fold there, and at the top as well is folded over. So take note of how this fabric is folded. Once you've smoothed out your fabric, place your pattern paper and cut. What you need to do is to make sure the neckline is aligned properly, and you can apply pins and make sure you cut properly. And once you've cut that, you want to open it up, and here we want to cut the neckline properly. We've only cut one side of the neckline, which is the 3 by 3 inches. Now you need to open it up and place your pattern paper like this. Grab your scissors and cut it. Like I said before, I went ahead and increased the neckline measurement by 2.5 inches. So from the 9 inches I had before, from the nape of the neck, I added 2.5 inches more. So in total there I've got 11.5 inches neckline on one side, and I've got 3 inches on the other side. So I've got 14.5 inches in total. The width of the neck in total is 14.5. So I went ahead and drafted another facing, and here is it. I increased the length of the facing, and here is the neckline. This is what your neckline should look like after cutting. this is what you should have. And I went ahead and placed my pattern paper on the fabric and transferred all the markings on my fabric, the hole, the keyhole, the shape of the dress, everything was transferred and marked on my fabric, as you can see here. I started off by cutting the keyhole, making a tiny cut before cutting properly. I cut two facing for the neckline, the front and the back, and a belt as well, measuring 5 inches by 100 inches. For the belt, the width is 5, the length is 100. I started attaching the facing and working on the shoulder line up to the sleeve opening. So you want to stitch with right side of the facing right side of the fabric, and flip it over and apply your hemming stitches, which I'll do later in the video. I moved on to the next stage by working on the keyhole. That is very important. After the neckline and the shoulder, move on to the keyhole, and this is what the inside of it should look like. See, this is what it should look like. And I went ahead and hemmed the neckline and stitched the dress, all the edges together. Once that was done, I placed back the pattern paper on the fabric and confirmed the marking I had of the bust to the waist and hip shape, and I top stitched on the right side of the fabric and not on the wrong side. And this is what you should have after stitching. And here's the kaftan I've made for my friend. I absolutely loved it. If you want the size of your keyhole to be smaller, just go ahead and take 1 inch instead of the 2 inches. And also the size of your belt is up to you. The belt doesn't have to be this long or wide, so whatever you choose is fine. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned one thing today. If this video has been helpful, remember to subscribe, press that notification bell, and like, share, and I'll see you in my next video. Till then, look after yourself and bye for now.